Here's everything you missed in WandaVision Episode 8. Oh my fisto, WandaVision fans, what an episode that was! WandaVision Episode 8, titled Previously On, gave us one of the most heart-wrenching episodes of this series to date, complete with some shocking reveals and some long-awaited answers. We have so much to talk about, including all manner of Easter eggs, deep-cut comic references, and so much more, so let's get into it, shall we? Now, if you prefer to read all about it, Rosie Knight has you covered over on Nerdist.com, but to discuss everything in detail, we do have to spoil WandaVision Episode 8, so if you haven't seen it yet, please fly away now or forfeit your right to complain in the comment section. As the title suggests, Previously On was all about the past for Westview's resident magical girls, Agatha Harkness and Wanda Maximoff. This episode was a brutal stroll down memory lane that exhumed Wanda's grief and forced her to dissect it while Agatha keeps poking and prodding for more answers. It's a great case for why everyone should probably get therapy, but maybe not from Agatha, who definitely isn't licensed.
Where are my children?
Where are my children?
The episode begins on an especially creepy note with the Marvel Studios logo transforming from Wanda Maximoff Red to Agatha Harkness's evil purple and black magic, and we learn that it has been Agatha all along since at least 1693, where she's run afoul of a coven of witches run by her own mother. This is during the height of the Salem witch trials, during which the citizens of Salem, Massachusetts accused more than 200 people of witchcraft, leading to the deaths of 25. Here, though, Agatha is on trial not just because she's a witch, but because she practiced the darkest of magic, which is, I guess, a violation of witch law. The witches bind Agatha with powerful blue energy and begin chanting Mors Monstro Naturae in Latin, which, based on my admittedly poor translation, means death to the monster of nature. They attempt to murder Agatha with their blue energy beams while Agatha glows red with pain, but what do you get when you combine red with blue? You get purple, baby. You got a magical stew going. And slowly but surely, Agatha's power overwhelms them, turning the energy purple like the magic we saw her use in Episode 7, and she seemingly reverses the spell, draining all of the witches, including their leader, her mother, of their life force, leaving them more dehydrated than I've felt for most of this year and last combined, which is really saying something. I need more water, like right now. As confirmed by the credits, the Witch Coven leader is Agatha's mother, Evanora Harkness, who's named for Evanora, the Wicked Witch of the East who gets crushed by Dorothy's house in The Wizard of Oz. And compared to being drained of your life force and turned into living beef jerky, I think I'd probably opt for being crushed by a falling house as well, because the alternative is just brutal. Agatha takes her signature brooch from her mother's corpse, which is just dark as hell, and she might well be the last surviving witch of Salem, Massachusetts. But from there, we transition back to Agatha's magical murder basement inside the Hex, where she's having a taunting conversation with Senior Scratchy, who's either her familiar instead of Ebony the cat, or maybe her son Nicholas Scratch in furry form. We'll just have to wait and see. Wanda learns the hard way who exactly she's dealing with as Agatha dunks on her about her inconsistent Sokovian accent, gloats that Wanda can't read her mind, and reveals that Wanda's magic doesn't work here thanks to a basic protection spell provided by the magical runes that Agatha has on her walls. We learn that only a witch who casts the runes can use her magic in a given space, evidently something so basic, Agatha can't believe Wanda doesn't know it.
How do you not know the fundamentals?
Agatha clearly has a vast understanding of multiple schools and styles of magic, but the one she's using here seems most akin to the Dark Dimension magic practiced by Caecilius and his henchmen in Doctor Strange, given these similar patterns, which seem more runic in nature than the elegant geometry of the Eldritch magic practiced by Doctor Strange and the Ancient One. Given Evanora's proclamation that Agatha used the darkest of magic, this could in fact be Dark Dimension magic, which would have a connection to a being like Dormammu, who we've seen previously in Doctor Strange and speculated could be the big bad of WandaVision because of an Avengers Defenders War comic storyline in which he's heavily featured. As we've mentioned as well, if that glowing tome in Agatha's basement is the Darkhold, that could be a connection to the Elder God Chthon and Chaos magic, the latter of which is referenced explicitly in this episode and, as we learn later on, is Wanda's magical bread and butter. We also learn the truth about Pietro Maximoff, or at least what we think is the truth. Fake Pietro, or Fietro if you nasty, isn't Quicksilver from the X-Men universe or a magically resurrected version of Wanda's dear departed brother. He's a crystalline possession, which makes it sound like he's a magical homunculus of sorts to serve as Agatha's eyes and ears. Then again, the idea of possession means she does need to take something over, so maybe Fietro isn't so fake after all. Agatha buries the theory that Pietro is undead. She says that she considered necromancy, but she notes that Pietro's body is on another continent and riddled with holes after he died tragically saving Hawkeye and civilians in Age of Ultron, which is just the rudest possible thing to say. That said, Agatha confirms that though she did manipulate Wanda, she isn't the one responsible for the Hex. Agatha was drawn to the Hex like a moth to flame, sensing the afterglow of all the many spells that Wanda apparently cast. While showing Wanda a couple simple spells like mind control and transmutation, Agatha interrogates Wanda about how she created the Hex in the first place before feeding that cicada that apparently wasn't Mephisto to her pet Senior Scratchy. Plucking a hair from Wanda's head like Doctor Strange did to Thor in Ragnarok, Agatha chants Repete Memoria, Latin for repeat the memory, and she wants to show Wanda reruns from her past so she can figure out how Wanda made the Hex, while apparently just doing magic on autopilot. Agatha reveals that she has Billy and Tommy stashed in her bewitched basement, a nice nod to the fact that her house is actually modeled after the house from the sitcom Bewitched. And speaking of sitcoms, we get a look into Wanda's Sokovian childhood to understand exactly where her deep-seated love of sitcoms comes from. Wanda's father, Oleg, would often bring home DVDs of American sitcoms for TV night with the family, so that way they could all watch together and practice their English. This also officially puts the kibosh on the theory that the two actors we've seen in the commercials are Wanda's parents. They're not. They're just recurring avatars in the magical deep dive into her repressed trauma that have crystallized into commercial form. You know, that old coping mechanism. Wanda's real parents are two very different actors. In the case of the DVDs, though, we see a bevy of shows that have either been explicitly or obliquely referenced on WandaVision thus far. I Love Lucy, I Dream of Jeannie, Bewitched, Malcolm in the Middle, Who's the Boss, and The Addams Family. But of course, Wanda's favorite of all is the Dick Van Dyke Show, which we saw referenced explicitly in episode 1. The family settles in to watch what's basically the Skrull invasion episode of the Dick Van Dyke Show called It May Look Like a Walnut. It's a surreal story about alien invaders losing your thumbs and reality rewriting itself. Most importantly, it's about how the TV shows we watch can have a powerful effect on our psyche, making us think what we watch is coming true, particularly appropriate for Wanda Maximoff.
I gotta wake up! I gotta get out of this nightmare!
There may be a slight error in the scene where Wanda asks for Season 2, Episode 21, which is actually My Husband is a Check Grabber, but maybe there's a difference between air date order and season order, or Sokovia just cut that one. Either way, it doesn't really matter because TV night is tragically cut short, because the gunfire outside is escalated into full-fledged bombing raids and an explosion kills Wanda and Pietro's parents while we see that Stark Industries bomb crash through their roof. The twins stare in stunned horror as the blinking red light of the unexploded bomb stares back at them. This was represented previously by the Stark Industries Toastmate 2000 commercial back in episode 1. We get a Rashomon-esque sequence where Wanda's story about how she and Pietro laid in the house for 2 days but the bomb inexplicably didn't go off doesn't quite match up with the reality of the situation because, as it turns out, young Wanda already had powers. She used what Agatha calls a probability hex, which is part of Wanda's vast power set in the comics. Her chaos magic, which, as we'll explain later, lets her manipulate probability among other things, in this case preventing a bomb from exploding. More importantly, though, this could be taken as potential confirmation that she and her brother had latent mutant abilities that were later powerfully enhanced by the Mind Stone. Speaking of which, our next stop on this nightmarish version of A Christmas Carol is to Hydra's secret lab, where Wanda and her brother served as Hydra's guinea pigs and were experimented on with Loki's scepter, which, you guessed it, housed the Mind Stone. As ethically sound as ever, we're reminded that no Hydra test subjects prior to Wanda have survived a direct encounter with the scepter. But before Wanda can even touch it, the scepter reacts to her presence and the Mind Stone flies out of it towards her, shedding its blue exterior and erupting in golden yellow light. Wanda has a vision of a woman flying towards her, which based on the silhouette and costume seems to be a version of Wanda Maximoff as the Scarlet Witch from the comics, most likely a vision of what she'll become. Wanda faints from this encounter and goes back to her cell where she proceeds to watch the Brady Bunch Kitty Carryall is Missing episode, which we saw referenced in episode 3 in both house and doll form. And it's fitting considering the episode is about caring for a fake child who goes missing. Billy and Tommy, looking at you. Weirdly enough, the security footage doesn't show anything that happened. Maybe this could be a side effect of Wanda's hex magic altering reality or probability here as well. It sure seems like it. Regardless, Agatha in this moment is all of us.
I have a theory, but I need more.
Next, we come to Wanda's bedroom at the Avengers compound in upstate New York, where she lived and binge-watched Malcolm in the Middle following her brother Pietro's death in Avengers Age of Ultron. She also seemingly has a stack of DVDs and a collection of sitcoms in her bedroom like her dear old dad did. Now, this might literally be the same collection, but keeping a hold of those specific DVDs through joining Hydra and Age of Ultron kinda seems unlikely. Even more importantly, this time period is where Wanda began to fall in love with the Vision, calling Avengers compound the first home they ever shared. We learn that Bryan Cranston is apparently canon in the MCU, and this sequence fills in some major gaps in Wanda and Vision's relationship between Age of Ultron and Captain America Civil War.
We talked about this.
Yes, but the door was open, so I assumed that...
In Wanda's darkest hour, Vision is there for her. Wanda had been through hell. The loss of Pietro weighs particularly heavy on her. The only thing that would bring me comfort is seeing him again, she says, talking about how in her grief she feels like she is drowning. Vision, though, has a truly thoughtful reply. But what is grief if not love persevering? And in a series and episodes so full of darkness, this is a really lovely, hopeful moment. It also serves to underscore the devastation that Wanda must have felt when, after coming back from the blip and almost single-handedly beating Thanos, she learns that the love of her life is still dead. So many other people had come back to the land of the living, but all Wanda had to return to was a sea of grief with no one to pull her back from the darkness. Tony Stark at least could have a proper funeral, but Vision was busy being dissected and studied by a government organization. And here is where things get well and truly buck wild, because we see Wanda walking into SWORD headquarters, which we know she broke into to steal the Vision's body like we saw for certain in episode 5. Wait, what? That didn't happen? That's not what went down? Wanda didn't take Vision's body after all, despite making a big old mess in the lab? Wow, Wanda just wants to give her dead lover a proper funeral. But real quick, at SWORD HQ we see some familiar sights in the background, like the WHIH News Network from Iron Man 2 reporting about people returning from the blip. The security camera is number 30, which coincidentally corresponds to Avengers number 30, in which Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver leave the Avengers because they believe their powers are tied to their homeland. We also see the repeated number 109 on this screen too, which could be a reference to Avengers 109, a story where Hawkeye gets so steamin' mad that Scarlet Witch and Vision are dating that he quits the Avengers, which might be a stretch, but just imagine Jeremy Renner having to act that scene out and just thank me later because,
Don't give me hope.
Ooh, do give me hope, actually. Give me some hope.
I'm sorry I couldn't give it to you sooner.
Anyway, I'm sorry, where was I? In a super off-putting scene, Wanda meets Hayward in his office, and he proudly shows off how they've disassembled Vision into hundreds of parts. They're treating her loved one like he's a stolen car at a chop shop. And once again, this imagery is straight out of the pages of West Coast Avengers number 43, a pivotal part of the Vision Quest storyline that plays a major role, especially in the mid-credits sequence. Hayward is acting sus as hell during this scene, almost like he's trying to get a rise out of Wanda or bait her into doing something. He mentions that they're dismantling the most sophisticated sentient weapon ever made, but he conveniently neglects to mention Project Cataract. Wanda asks them to stop, but Hayward invokes the Sokovia Accord, saying it's their legal and ethical obligation to dismantle the Vision. Now, in case you forgot, the Sokovia Accords were enacted partly as a result of Wanda's actions during Civil War, as well as the trail of collateral damage that Avengers leave in their wake in places like New York, or Sokovia, or literally anywhere they go. They're kind of messy, like shawarma.
I don't know what it is, but I want to try it.
Hayward questions Wanda's motive, saying that not everyone has the kind of power that can bring their soulmate back online, a power that Wanda denies that she has. But based on Darcy, Jimmy, and Monica's debate in episode 5 about who could beat Thanos, Wanda's incredible abilities are extremely well documented. Hayward also claims he can't give Wanda Vision's body for a proper burial because he's made of approximately $3 billion worth of vibranium, the toughest and most valuable substance in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The straw that ultimately breaks the camel's back, though, is when Wanda tells Hayward that Vision is all she has, to which he replies, "That's just it, Wanda, he isn't yours." Wanda lashes out, shattering the glass and jumping into the lab below. Wanda holds her hand to Vision's head and says, "I can't feel you." It's a heartbreaking callback to a tender phrase they share with each other in Avengers Infinity War, once when they're alone in Scotland, and right before Wanda must destroy the Mind Stone, killing the one she loves. They really make you think that Wanda's about to kick some SWORD agent ass and hijack Vision's body, but she doesn't. She just kind of leaves. She gets into her Scarlet Buick, which she's been driving a period-appropriate version of the entire time, and makes her way to the real Westview, New Jersey. This town is much more run down and economically depressed than what we see inside the Hex, though. Here we see the real-world versions of Herb, Phil Jones, Mrs. Hart, and Dennis the Mailman, plus some familiar locations like the gazebo from the talent show in episode 2, which is fenced off and disused, and the pool club, which is also neglected, filled with leaves. Wanda's destination is a familiar sight. Well, sort of. The letter on the seat contains a deed to 2800 Sherwood Drive, the property she envisioned bought to grow old in. But like many things in Wanda's life, this deed is a promise unfulfilled, a statement of intent that can never come true. Overcome with grief, Wanda drops to her knees and erupts with magical energy, going Super Saiyan Scarlet, and the beginnings of the Hex are born. She creates a fully furnished house out of thin air. In a second burst of energy, the Hex spreads across Westview, transforming everything from its rundown modern look into the pristine mid-century black and white sitcom aesthetic like her televised comfort foods of yesteryear. We see a Westview dairy billboard, which you may remember from that ever-changing milk carton last episode, and we see a sign for Lagos brand paper towels. Now, we first saw this product as an ad in the episode 5 commercial, which references Wanda accidentally injuring civilians with a bomb in Lagos, Nigeria during Captain America Civil War. Its tagline, "Making clean a snap," references the many snaps of the Infinity Gauntlet and how it absorbs up to 25% more than the leading brand. The theater marquee mentions Tannhauser Gate, which is from Roy Batty's famous Tears in the Rain speech in Blade Runner, and fitting for a figure cast as a villain who really just wants to live in peace, just like Wanda. The marquee changes to a double bill of Big Red and Kidnapped, which obviously means that Mephisto has taken Wanda's kids. I'm just kidding. It's more like a reference to the fact that Wanda, i.e. Big Red, has effectively kidnapped the town of Westview. Raw magical energy keeps flowing from Wanda as she forms a magical construct version of the Vision from pure nothingness. She wasn't lying before. Wanda cannot bring Vision back to life, but evidently, if pushed hard enough, she can make a synthezoid spouse all her own. This also further explains why Vision can't leave the Hex. He is a product of the Hex and Wanda's magic, so if he leaves its area of effect, he will be torn asunder as the energy returns to its source. We see Wanda accept this moment and her disbelief as she overcomes the shock of her new creation and steps into the black and white reality fading from color to sitcom. This moment, though, is short-lived as Wanda realizes she is on a TV set while Agatha slow claps from the audience before disappearing in a cloud of purple magic smoke. And based on a previous behind-the-scenes featurette, we did see the live studio audience dressed in period garb, so maybe we will return here again in the finale. Wanda's reverie, though, is shattered by the pleading cries of her children, Billy and Tommy. Clad in their usual costumes meant to evoke their comic book counterparts, Wiccan and Speed, Billy and Tommy have magical purple and black ropes around their neck. Agatha, floating menacingly in the middle of the street, is still holding them hostage. Agatha tells Wanda that she knows exactly what and who she is, and Wanda has no idea how dangerous she really is. Wanda is a being capable of spontaneous creation from nothing. Agatha reveals that Wanda's children, Vision, the life she's living in Westview, are all things Wanda has made as a result of chaos magic, which is something that makes Wanda the Scarlet Witch. Now, if you didn't do a fist pump and scare your dog Bones at 1 in the morning, then, well, you might not be me. But this moment is incredible because it's the first canonical mention of chaos magic and Wanda's superhero name, the Scarlet Witch, in the MCU. It's kind of fascinating that Agatha refers to the Scarlet Witch as an inheritable title because it's been established previously, sort of, in 2016 Scarlet Witch number 3 that Wanda became the Scarlet Witch, but before her, her mom Natalia was the Scarlet Witch. It's all a bit confusing because of how frequently Marvel retcons her and Pietro's origins. Which witch is which? No one knows. Now, for those who don't know, chaos magic is one of the strongest forms of magic in the Marvel Universe. It's capable of manipulating the very fabric of existence. It was created long ago by the Elder God Chthon, a primordial evil being who marked Wanda as a child as a potential vessel for him to inhabit, thereby imbuing her with a fraction of his power so she too could control chaos magic. As we've theorized previously, based on the reddish-orange glow emanating from its pages and the red glow of Wanda's powers, the book in Agatha's basement could be the Darkhold, an ancient spellbook which Chthon used to bind himself to Earth from the realm in which he dwells. If Agatha is someone who studied the dark arts of magic, chances are she would want to learn and understand how to use chaos magic, so perhaps she could have a powerful dark artifact like the Darkhold in her possession, or even be working as an agent of Chthon in exchange for some sort of demonic boon. Or maybe, just maybe, Agatha is working with another sorcerer who does not have qualms about dabbling in the dark arts like Doctor Strange's arch-nemesis, Baron Mordo. And then the episode shockingly suddenly just ends, and for the first time we're without one of the show's biggest villains, the Please Stand By graphic that's tortured us for the past 7 weeks. Thankfully though, as with episode 7, there is a mid-credit scene this week, which finally answers our lingering questions about what Hayward and Sword are plotting, what happened to the Vision, and what Project Cataract really is. Outside the Hex, Hayward and his cronies stand in front of a newly rebuilt version of the Vision who is stark white and has what looks like a miniature arc reactor where the Mind Stone used to be. They're using the residual chaos magic energy on the Stark Industries drone they sent into Westview so they can power the Vision. Because Wanda derived her powers from the Mind Stone, which also gave the Vision sentience and life, it seems to be strong enough to wake this synthezoid from his slumber. So why is the Vision white like a Westworld host without skin? Well, this can be explained by the aforementioned Vision Quest storyline from West Coast Avengers. On the cover of West Coast Avengers 45, the Vision looms large as a pale specter of his former self, the cover itself an echo of Vision's very first appearance in Avengers number 57. And much like on WandaVision, Vision had been dismantled, but after being rebuilt, he was missing something important, his personality matrix. Previously, the Vision in the comics had a personality based on Simon Williams, the Avenger Wonder Man's brainwaves. Simon was also in love with Wanda and refused to let them scan his brain again for this new version of the Vision. And this all-white, personality-less Vision was a cold, emotionless character and ultimately created a deep rift between Wanda and himself. During this time as well, Wanda and Vision dealt with another tragedy, the shocking revelation that Billy and Tommy, their twin sons, weren't real. Rather, they were fragments of the demon Mephisto's soul wrought flesh by Wanda's powerful chaos magic. They too were eventually reabsorbed into Mephisto, and who should swoop in to save the day by altering Wanda's memories? That's right, Agatha Harkness. So clearly, Hayward's Project Cataract is this dulled version of the Vision, a version of the sentient synthezoid weapon that he and Sword can control. And as Agatha hinted at the end of the episode, Wanda's kids might be about as real as the life she's built in Westview, which is to say, not very real at all. And with the love of her life turned against her as a living weapon, and the impending disappearance of her kids, something tells me Wanda is about to unleash the true extent of her power and ultimately bring us headlong into the multiverse of madness that Doctor Strange 2 has promised. One thing we do know for certain, the end is nigh, WandaVision fans. With just one episode to go, we have so many questions about how it will all end. As always, we'll keep you up to date on all things WandaVision over on Nerdist.com, but in the meantime, tell us, what did you think of Episode 8? Did you spot anything that we missed? Let us know in the comments below, and for the latest and greatest in the world of pop culture, stay tuned to Nerdist.com.